Hello, my name is Atoya Johnson, and I am the Social Service Director with Georgia Justice Project. And I just want to give you all some information today regarding our Work Matters program. It's information you need to know to complete a successful job search. Our Work Matters program provides one-on-one support for job search, application skills, interview skills, creating and updating your resumes, and explaining your criminal background, and also creating a letter of explanation. We feel like it's beneficial for our clients to have this support, especially when you're re-entering into the workforce, or just actually if you have any type of challenges with your background. We want to make sure that you have the support that you need so that you can have a successful job search. Georgia unemployment rate is a factor in searching for employment. Currently it's at 5.9%. You know, it was higher years ago when we actually created this program. So it's good to see that it has decreased. It plays a factor in job availabilities, as well as it does make it harder to possibly find employment if you have a criminal history, but you know, there are jobs out there. You just have to be strategic in searching for those particular jobs or think outside of the box when searching for employments. Some employers have policies that present barriers, but many are looking for good candidates. And just a little word of encouragement, you know, searching for a job can be challenging for just about anyone. But again, if you have challenges such as, you know, criminal history or background concerns, it does make it more challenging, but do not take it personally or get discouraged when searching for employment. So this slide here is just talking about some ways that you can be job ready. It's important to have your resume and cover letter updated, reference letters, character letters, and the letter of explanation. And I will explain a little bit more about the letter of explanation. Have your documents such as your birth certificate, ID card, passports, any of those things that are that will be helpful for you when you're searching for employment. Gathering your dispositions, very important to have that in case you actually apply for a job and the background companies have reported inaccurate information. You will have your dispositions to dispute, say for instance, if the charge has been dismissed, but it's showing otherwise on the background check that was pulled by the employer. Being able to pass a drug screen is important, but more importantly as well is being persistent, confident, and self-assured when searching for employment. So what have you heard about employers and criminal records? Well, we deal with a lot of people that come in and say, you know, oh, I have a history, so therefore I won't get a job. The employer probably won't pull my criminal record. I won't be able to work again because of my criminal history, and being honest won't get me anywhere. And for those that are actually on parole or probation, they feel like those officers are not supportive. I would say that most of that information is false. I'm not saying that it's 100% true, but it can be false because there are people that actually have criminal histories and they do get employment. Again, it's just thinking out of the box and being persistent and strategic in your job search. And people with criminal records are getting jobs everywhere, every day. Like I stated before, it's challenging, but there are options out there. This slide here is just encouraging and pushing you to apply. You cannot apply too much or apply for too many jobs. We know that the process for applying for jobs online is very challenging because you have to create usernames, you have to go through these different steps to actually apply for employment, but it's important to apply to as many jobs as you possibly can. So where should I apply? We encourage individuals to consider companies that are smaller. They may be able to focus more on you versus their hiring policy. We know that larger companies, their policies are different and probably a little bit more strict. So just consider smaller companies so that they can focus more on you versus their policies. So some industries that typically considering hiring those with criminal histories: warehouse, factories, hospitality, food service, transportation, staffing agencies, and some companies that hire seasonal employees. You may actually go in from temp to permanent, so that's something to consider. When I mention the industries that typically considering hiring individuals with criminal histories, is not saying that those that have more skills, these are the only jobs that you're eligible for or that you should apply for. But if for those that may have been out of work or maybe have some gaps in employment, these are some places to at least start to get your foot in the door for employment. But the main thing is focusing on getting employed and starting employment somewhere. Employers are more likely to hire someone who's already working. And the last bullet, where it states focus on types of employment that are not directly related to your charges, is very important. For example, here I have theft charge, a job handling money where you're responsible for other people's belongings or actually dealing with financial transactions may be a challenge for you if you have a theft charge on your background. This is just one example to consider, that if this is something that's going to be on your background and is not eligible to be removed, it's important to think outside of the box and maybe consider some other type of areas of employment, especially if this is something that's going to remain on your background. So this slide here is just stating the average person may submit 10 to 20 applications before getting a job. But if you have felony convictions and some misdemeanor convictions, no GED or education, no work history or experience, transportation is a challenge for you, and no work experience or skills, or there's been gaps in between employment, this means you have to submit, this is stating 50 to 60 applications, but sometimes it's more than that. So it's just a visual to give you, to provide, just to get you to see that if you have these challenges, and just along with several people actually applying for employment, it just makes it a lot more challenging for you. But so it's just to keep in mind how many applications you may have to submit before actually landing maybe that one job. So how do I explain my criminal history when seeking employment? This is an area that a lot of our clients find very challenging, and it makes sense. You don't know what to say. How much should I say? When should I say it? Should I tell them up front, or should I wait until they ask? We suggest that you be honest and take responsibility for it. If it was 20 years ago, if it was 5 years ago, if it was 3 months ago, be honest with what happened and take responsibility for that situation that occurred in your life. Share what you learned from that experience, but make sure that when you're applying and completing the applications, you're reading it thoroughly and make sure you're answering the questions based on what you're being asked. For instance, some applications, most of them may say, have you been arrested? Some may say, have you been convicted? If you were arrested, you should state that you have been arrested. You should answer yes for that. If you were convicted of it, whether it's a misdemeanor or a felony, some may say it was 7 years ago. But if you were convicted of a misdemeanor or a felony within the last 7 years, you should make sure you answer that question. And do not provide too much information. What I'm stating here is when you answer, say for instance, you say yes to any of those questions, they may give you the opportunity to explain. And like I said, state the year, what happened, and not too many specific details, because that gives the employer the opportunity or the option to kind of dive in and maybe paint this picture of something that may not have been as bad as it was. So the main thing is just be honest, take responsibility, and share what you learned from this experience. And this is information that you can actually create your own sample, your own letter of explanation stating this information. So how do I explain my criminal history when seeking employment? Pretty much the same things that I stated before on the application. Be prepared to discuss it at that time. Do not defer to, we'll discuss at the interview. I feel like a lot of employers, they get a lot of applications that come across their desk or via email. So at that time, it's best to just go ahead and put it out there and state, what your charges were, but also be able to attach that letter of explanation to them. And that's where, I was mentioning, consider preparing a brief statement to discuss your charges and the progress you've made since to deal with those charges. This can be submitted with your application or uploaded via the internet when you submit your application. This is very important to have just for yourself and be able to articulate that verbally, but also be able to submit something in writing to the employers, as well as it gives them a sense of, you're just being upfront and honest. Most of the times, the questions about your background, employers are using that as an honesty test, because if they're considering moving forward with you as a candidate, at some point they're going to pull your background. And so that information may come up. So if it looks like you're not being honest or you're trying to hide information, they will look at that and try to use that as an honesty test and maybe say, determine if they're going to actually move forward with considering you for employment. And the criminal history is usually the last item that employers obtain and review. So what can you do while unemployed? Network. You can never network too much, whether it's friends, family, church members, there's advocacy groups, community organizations. You can network wherever you are. When we were there, we've had people in our offices that were connecting with each other and they were networking that way. So always utilize, if you're in areas with other people, friends or families, just ask questions and network. Register with employment agencies such as your Department of Labor's, workforce developments, and staffing agencies. A lot of staffing agencies go from temp to permanent. So that is something that, to consider and keep in mind. Volunteering, of course, we all want to work because we need to be paid, we have responsibilities, but in between actually landing that a job, you can actually volunteer because it helps expand your networks. You learn some transferable skills, and it gives you an opportunity to explore, what do I really want to do for a career? It fills employment gaps, and it also impresses employers to say, hey, no, this person hasn't been working, but they have been feeling, utilizing their downtime in other ways, whether it's to give back or work. And sometimes volunteering can actually lead to employment with that particular agency if an opportunity should come open. So I'm give you all this information, and again, if you have any questions, I'm sure that someone from our intake staff can get those questions to me. Again, my name is Atoya Johnson, and I am the Social Services Director at Georgia Justice Project. I hope this information was helpful. We have, I'm sure that someone from intake will provide you with copies of this presentation as well as a sample letter of explanation and our job tip sheets.